Hello. I am going to try to explain how we can make a difference in an election. And I know it's hard to believe sometimes that that's even possible with the stuff that we see going on. But I'm going to try to back this up with some data from the simulation at 538.com. I've actually taken samples, screenshots from the site at two different dates and times. The first set was updated on February 22nd, 2020 at 1:35 a.m. That's Eastern time. I'm actually in Pacific time, but that's the way they list it on their website. And the second set was updated on February 23rd, 2020 at 9:54 p.m. Now, what's significant about those two sampling times is that the first one was before the Nevada Democratic primary caucuses, and the second one was after the Nevada Democratic primary caucuses. They're about roughly a day and a half apart. And I'd like to show what difference was made by the people, because the people do this. Now, granted, some of the changes that are going to be shown in this simulation are not necessarily accurate to what's actually going to happen, because it is a prediction after all. But it's a prediction based on a model that's simulating a process to the best of the ability of the people who've put this model together. And so a lot of this is actually change that the people are making happen. And that's what I want people to understand, that they can make change happen. So this is looking here at the prediction for how each candidate's chances of winning more than half of pledged delegates in the Democratic National Convention have changed over time. And what the graph on the left shows is what their model was predicting at each point along the way that they made a prediction. They basically they started running the simulation, as I understand it, at this point where the forecast is launched. Just a little bit into the month of January. Before that, as I understand it, they were making the prediction based on polls and surveys, but without actually running the simulation. Well, I don't know how accurate that is, because as I understand it, they actually had simulations separately for each of the different contests. And they might have been running those. I don't know the details before that point. But they put together a simulation that basically strings all of these other simulations together and runs it from beginning to end. And that's what we're looking at the results of from that point on. Again, at least according to the claims on the website, to my understanding of them. And you might notice that here no one is beating Sanders. No one is beating Bernie Sanders, meaning that it's more likely, it's predicted more likely at that point in time that by the time we get to the Democratic National Convention that nobody would get more than half of the pledged delegates. That's before the Nevada caucuses that prediction was made. After the Nevada caucuses, it's then predicted more likely that Bernie Sanders will win more than half the pledged delegates than that no one will. So it's really a race in that sense between Bernie Sanders and no one. And as a matter of fact, if you look at the other candidates in the race, I'll go back to the earlier image. You can see there's not really a lot of difference there. All of the other candidates are way down near the bottom of the image at this point. If you go back to before the Iowa caucuses, Biden was up on the top and Bernie Sanders was down below him up until right about the moment of the caucuses. And here's the thing. a prediction like this will get more accurate as more data comes in, as more information becomes available in general. And that sort of shows on the graph, as you can see, that Biden was predicted before it got really close to the Iowa caucuses, and before the final data was coming in about that, Biden was predicted as much more likely to win all the way to the end than Bernie Sanders. And then as the Iowa caucuses approached, and then when the Iowa caucuses happened, you can see that changed, especially once the Iowa caucuses happened. There goes Biden's chances. I mean, dropped way down there, and in a short time, he's right down there with Bloomberg, who was climbing up at the time and basically caught up with Joe Biden, but still way near the bottom. So. Now, one little difference you might notice, after the Nevada caucuses, the chances of nobody winning dipped down a little, and the chances of Bernie Sanders winning a majority of delegates on the first delegate vote at the Democratic National Convention jumped up quite a bit. And in that screenshot I got from the update at February 23rd, 9:54 p.m. Eastern Time, it's showing Bernie Sanders at 46%. And last I looked, it actually had gone up from there, and I'm not sure right now. If I take a quick look, I'll see last updated at February 24th, 8:23 p.m. Okay, now Bernie Sanders is at it predicted 45% chance of winning more than half the votes in the first round. And if that happens, if anybody wins more than half the votes, there isn't a second round, which is why basically the party elite, for the most part, are working as hard as they can to try to keep Bernie Sanders from winning, because they want their so-called superdelegates to decide who gets to be elected, who gets to be president, who gets to be the nominee that the people get to have on the ballot so they can vote for that person. And a lot of us independents are already planning on writing in Bernie Sanders if he's not on the ballot. So if they want to throw our votes away, we can't stop them. But I will say it's wrong. If the people want Bernie Sanders and he gets the plurality of votes in that first round, the superdelegates should not take that from us, but they can. So what we, the people, need to do, if we want to make sure that we get our way instead of their way, is we need to make sure that our candidate, whoever that may be, and I think it's Bernie Sanders, but other people may disagree with me, but we need to make sure that our candidate wins by a large margin, that our candidate gets more than half of the votes in that first round, so that they can't take that away without flat out breaking their own bylaws, which they did in 2016. They broke their own bylaws. But hopefully Bernie's got enough precautions set up against that to stop them if they do it to him. And if they do it to some other candidate, well, I hope they're prepared as well. Again, I don't think I'm wrong here, but I don't want to tell somebody else don't vote for who they think is best. Vote for who you think is best, whoever that may be. If you don't agree with me that Bernie is the best, I would recommend that you look into it more, because I think you'll end up changing your mind if you actually do your research on him instead of listening to rumors. But if it comes time to vote and you still think someone else is better, vote for who you think is better. Otherwise, if you think Bernie's the best, please vote for Bernie. And please don't just not vote, because that makes a difference, because that's helping no one win that first round. And if no one wins that first round, the people lose, most likely. I mean, that reduces our chances hugely, because the superdelegates are not really delegates. They're just people who get to override the delegates. The delegates are the ones who actually go in and vote, representing what the people asked for, or at least that's what they're pledged to do. They take a pledge to vote for a particular candidate on behalf of the people who voted for that candidate. That's how it works. Now I'm going to try to go through this stuff rather quickly. I'm going to pick up the pace here in a little bit, but I did want to do some explaining. I'm going to read this little paragraph here. Our latest forecast for how many pledged delegates each candidate will win after all states have voted. 538's model simulates the primary season thousands of times to find the most likely outcome for each candidate. The chart shows how many delegates, on average, each candidate is projected to have pledged to them at each point in the primary season, along the range of possible delegate counts. We are also showing the distribution of simulated final pledged delegate counts in the table, where taller bars mean more likely outcome. Right now, many candidates, even the front runners, wind up with tall bars close to 0. Generally, those are simulations where the candidate dropped out before having a chance to accumulate many delegates. So, yeah, in other words, if, like, for example, Amy Klobuchar, you might notice everything is bunched up over on the left, and you've got this really tall bar on the left. That's because almost all of her outcomes are 0 or close to 0 when the simulation runs. Warren, pretty much the same thing. Biden and Buttigieg, a little bit less so. Bloomberg, a little bit less than that. Which makes sense because, you know, he's a billionaire. He's a multi-billionaire. He's got the money to stay in the race for a much longer time. And yeah, if he doesn't manage to achieve a majority by the end, he'll probably just, you know, well, I don't know. Hard to say. I'm not going to say what he may or may not do. But I'm just saying the simulation is designed to take certain things into consideration. What exactly and how exactly, I don't know. I didn't write it. So I shouldn't make any assumptions. I do want to point out the numbers here. This is before the Nevada caucuses, and it's showing Bloomberg with the second most pledged delegates on the average, way below Bernie Sanders, almost half. I mean, he's got more than half, but it's very close to just being half of what Bernie Sanders has. Joe Biden just a little bit behind Bloomberg in this case. Now, anybody who watched the Democratic debate in Nevada probably noticed that Bloomberg did extremely poorly. And I'm not saying Biden did well, or, you know, I'm not going to say who did well and not well. My opinion doesn't really matter, except that I think Bernie Sanders did quite well, but I'm biased because, well, I mean, I've been watching him for a long time, and I like the things that he's been doing throughout his career. I like the stuff that he was doing before his career in politics. I like the way the guy thinks in general. Now, don't get me wrong, he's not perfect, and I see the flaws, but, you know, I'm expecting him to do well, so I that may skew my view of what actually happened somewhat. It happens to all of us, at least to some extent. But let's have a look after the Nevada caucuses at that same chart. Notice now that in that case, Bloomberg has dropped down quite a bit, and Biden has gone up a little. Now, if we look back, look at the actual numbers, Okay, Biden had 753. Bloomberg had 922. Okay, what just happened there? Bernie Sanders has gone up on his average number of delegates, and they run these simulation thousands of times. The average number of pledged delegates that Bernie Sanders ends up with went up after the after this like day and a half between when they froze the simulation before the Nevada caucuses and when I collected these screenshots about a half a day after they started it back up again. I think it's about a half a day after, so day and a half or so after the first numbers. And Bernie actually went up by 129 pledged delegates in this case, which is quite substantial. Joe Biden went up by 67, which is, well, roughly half of the amount that Bernie went up. It's still pretty substantial. Bloomberg, on the other hand, went down by 153. That's very substantial. And you would think that the other candidates would each benefit somewhat from that because they're going to get some of the delegates that Bloomberg didn't. But they also didn't really do all that well, in my opinion, in the debate. But that's not the big thing. The big thing is when people went out there and actually voted. How did they do in the actual voting, in the actual caucuses? And I think that's what made the bigger difference. Now, again, that's an opinion. But take those two things together, and this is the results we have. This is what the simulation is projecting before and after the Nevada caucuses. Before the caucuses, the first one is actually before the caucuses, but after the debate. So some of the debate effect had already taken place by then. I don't know how much of it, but some of that was still taking effect as well. But any rate, I don't, like I said, I don't want to take too much time on this. I want to speed this up here. So yeah, all of the other candidates went down in their numbers. Is that accurate? Oh wait, no. I think Warren went up. Let's see, 246. What did she have in the other one? Let's go back and look. Yeah, she had 199. She went up. Buttigieg went... Oh, he went up also. It was 298 he had, and he went... No. Sorry, my brain just fried. He went from 298 to 231. Yeah, he went down. And then Klobuchar went from 111 down to 92. So also, yeah, she went down. So, yeah, I'm not perfect. If I make a mistake in this, please forgive me. It's not on purpose. I'm doing the best I can here. Wanting to hurry myself makes it harder to keep everything straight. So, doing the best I can. Moving onward. This is the prediction for the state of Nevada, for the Nevada caucuses, before the caucuses actually happened. And in this prediction, this forecast, it says Saturday, February 22nd, Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 93% of the vote in Nevada. In 80% of simulations, he wins between 26% and 52% of the vote. That's that wide cyan area in the graph on the left. He has a 6 and 7 or 85% chance of winning. I'm going to go with the percentages because they're more precise. The ratios are just sort of rounded. So he has an 85%. He was predicted at that point in time of having an 85% chance of winning. Of course, he actually won, so now he has a 100% chance of having won that event because he won. But at any rate, at that time, he was predicted to have an 85% chance of winning the most votes. It says much better than the second most likely winner, Buttigieg, who had at that time a 6% chance predicted of winning the most votes. Moving on to the just a brief look at how many delegates were actually given out in that event in Nevada. Sanders got 24 delegates, pledged delegates for the national convention. Biden got 9 and Buttigieg got 3. Warren didn't get any. South Carolina. It says Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 28% of the vote in South Carolina. He has a 46% chance of winning the most votes. Slightly better than Biden, who has a 40% chance. So 46% compared to 40%. That's before the Nevada caucuses. After the Nevada caucuses, Biden's chances actually increased, in this case, more than Bernie Sanders did. As a matter of fact, the chances, according to this, just for this contest, now mind you, this isn't like for everything along the way or for the final results. For the South Carolina caucuses, the simulation, on the average, found Biden's chances to have gone up by 7% of winning the most votes in South Carolina, and Bernie Sanders' chances of winning the most votes in South Carolina to have gone down by 3% compared to where they were in that earlier data from before the Nevada caucuses. So if you were to just take this, looking good for Biden, not looking good for Sanders, right? But let's move on. California. Super Tuesday comes along, March 3rd. And here in California, where I'm at, it says Sanders is forecasted to win 31% of the vote in California. He has a 73% chance of winning the most votes. Much better than the second most likely winner, Bloomberg. Not Biden in this case, but Bloomberg comes in second here, according to this prediction. Now, again, that can change. That's what I really want to drive home the most. We can change these things if we want to. I want Bernie Sanders to win, but I want him to win by an even bigger margin than it's predicting. So that's what I'm working for. If you want someone else to win, work toward that. I'm not going to tell you not to. I'm going to say, do it. But do your research as well. Research my candidate. Research someone else's candidate, because you might be making a mistake. So try to avoid making a mistake, but work toward what you feel is best. Do the best you can. That's all I'm saying. And choosing to not vote isn't the best you can do. Choosing to vote for the lesser of two evils, by the way, is worse than not voting at all, because that's actually voting for someone that you recognize as a bad person to elect. Can't imagine why you'd actually want to elect a bad person to elect. So that's actually worse than not voting at all. I understand that it's a thing people do strategically because they think that someone else is going to win. That's even worse if they don't do that. Well, the only reason that that person they think is worse even has any chance in most cases at all is because other people are doing what they're doing. Either one or both could be wrong. And yeah, it's possible that both could be wrong. It's possible that the two candidates are equally bad, that neither is worse than the other. So yeah, voting for the lesser of two evils, I really don't recommend. I know blue no matter who is a big thing among Democrats. Remember, I'm an independent, so I don't think like that. And smarter Democrats, in my opinion, don't think that way either. I'm not trying to say I'm smarter than everyone else. Hey, I got my share of stupid in lots of areas. But that is one area I've had a lot of time to think about. So, yeah, I hope I can teach people a little something along, about that if they don't already know better. Please don't vote for the lesser of two evils. Vote for the best, whoever that happens to be, whatever their odds happen to be. Make the odds better instead of helping to make them worse, which is what voting for the lesser of two evils does. That buries the good candidates under bad candidates. Right now, Bernie Sanders actually has a very good chance. So if you believe Bernie Sanders is a good candidate and you vote for a bad candidate, you're hurting the chances of someone who has a good chance. If somebody tells you he doesn't have a good chance, you can believe them if you want or not believe them. But remember, you can change the odds. So even if you believe them that he doesn't have a good chance, you can make it so he does. Not alone, with the help of other people. Talk to people. Get help. So, let's look a little farther on this, okay? It says that Bernie Sanders has a 73% chance of winning the most votes in California. Much better than the second most likely winner, Bloomberg, who has a 10% chance of winning the most votes in California. So it's not clinched. There is still a chance someone else may win that most amount of votes in California. That doesn't mean they get all of the delegates. They get a fraction of them. And in this case, the simulation is estimating that Bernie Sanders will end up with about 197 delegates and that Bloomberg will end up with about 80 delegates from the state of California. At least that's what it was predicting before the Nevada caucuses happened. After the Nevada caucuses, Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 32% of the vote in California. He has a 79% chance of winning the most votes. Much better than the second most likely winner, Biden, who has a 9% chance. So after the Nevada caucuses, Bloomberg is no longer the second most likely to win California. Now the simulation says Biden is the second most likely to win California. So, you might notice, though, that Bernie Sanders' chance of winning the most votes is still huge, 79%. In fact, it's gone up by 6% during that time. Now, when I'm recording this video, more time has gone by, and I'm not going to go, back to the web page and compare all of these things to what's current right now. I do want to point out they're still changing. I'll put a link to the website in the video description. I hope people will actually look there and see what's current, and keep in mind again that it's a useful tool, but it is not deciding who wins. It's just predicting based on information and mathematical processes and algorithms. So again, we can have an actual effect on the outcome. So moving onward, Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 28% of the vote in Texas. He has a 56% chance of winning the most votes, much better than the second most likely winner, Biden, who has a 22% chance. That was predicted before the Nevada caucuses. After the Nevada caucuses, Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 29% of the vote in Texas. He has a 63% chance of winning the most votes, much better than the second most likely winner, Biden, who has a 22% chance. So Bernie Sanders had an increase of 7% in his chance of winning the most votes, and Biden had no noticeable change. Moving on to North Carolina. Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 27% of the vote there. He has a 46% chance of winning the most votes. A bit better than Bloomberg, who has a 26% chance as of before the Nevada caucuses. After the Nevada caucuses, the simulation predicts Sanders forecasted to win an average of 27% of the vote in North Carolina, has a 52% chance of winning the most votes, a bit better than Biden, who has a 23% chance as the second most likely. So, again, there's some change there. Bernie Sanders increased his chances of winning the most votes in North Carolina by 6% through the Nevada caucuses. And Biden decreased his chances of winning by 3%. So in spite of the kick that Biden got, in spite of the bounce up that he got from Bloomberg doing so badly, Biden went down in his chances of winning in North Carolina. How about another Super Tuesday contest? Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 27% of the vote in Virginia. He has a 44% chance of winning the most votes, a bit better than Bloomberg, who has a 29% chance. And that, again, is a forecast from before the Nevada caucuses. After the Nevada caucuses, Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 28% of the vote in Virginia. He has a 49% chance of winning the most votes, a bit better than Bloomberg, who has a 24% chance. So Bernie Sanders has a 5% increase there. Bloomberg has a 5% decrease there. Also on March 3rd, Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 26% of the vote in Massachusetts. As of just before the Nevada caucuses, he was predicted to have a 53% chance of winning the most votes, much better than the second most likely winner, Warren, who was predicted to have a 20% chance. After the Nevada caucuses, Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 27% of the vote in Massachusetts. He has a 56% chance of winning the most votes, a bit better than Warren, who has a 26% chance. So in Massachusetts, after the Nevada caucuses, Bernie's chances of winning the most votes went up 3%, and Warren's chances also went up 3%. Now, this is important to note. You might want to take note of the number of times that happens where the top two candidates both increase their chances of ending up being the one with the most votes in a given contest. Because a lot of people make the mistake of thinking that for one of the top candidates to increase their chances, another one has to decrease their chances. For example, there might be a lot of Bernie supporters out there who make the mistake of thinking that that trying to talk people out of voting for a candidate that they prefer is the best way of getting votes for Bernie Sanders. It's actually not, because if you can give people who prefer a different candidate a reason to prefer your preferred candidate instead, that will increase the chances they're going to vote for your preferred candidate. But if all you do is convince them that they shouldn't vote for their own preferred candidate, they might just decide not to vote at all. Or they might decide to vote for a third candidate that you hadn't really even considered them voting for. So keep that in mind. In particular, remember that bump that I mentioned Joe Biden got from Bloomberg taking a fall in the Nevada caucuses and in the debate before the Nevada caucuses in Nevada. You can expect Bernie Sanders and Biden to both go up because Bernie Sanders has millions of people working to increase his chances because they believe in what he's trying to do. They agree with his ideas, and they like his plans, and Biden got that bump up from Bloomberg going down. So in places where Bloomberg was the second, you expect that in some of those places Biden is going to be in second place instead, and in places where Joe Biden was second place, expect that he will be going up in his chances in those places, in spite of Bernie Sanders also going up in those places. And spoiler alert, I think we've already covered all of the places where Bernie Sanders goes down in his chances. That would be South Carolina, was it? Yeah, South Carolina, 3%. That the simulation was saying Bernie Sanders' chances went down by 3%. Can they go back up? Of course they can. If you live in South Carolina and you want Bernie Sanders to win, do something about it. If you don't live in South Carolina, you want Bernie Sanders to win in South Carolina, well, just, keep spreading the word about why you support Bernie Sanders, and if possible, tell some people in South Carolina. So, yeah. Any rate, so moving on. Minnesota. Before the Nevada caucuses, in Minnesota, Klobuchar is forecasted to win an average of 26% of the vote, and she has a 48% chance of winning the most votes, slightly better than Sanders, who has a 39% chance. After the Nevada caucuses, the predictions say Klobuchar is forecasted to win an average of 27% of the vote in Minnesota, slightly better than Sanders, who has a 43% chance. So, again, both candidates increased their chances of winning the most votes, because other candidates who were lower than second place in their odds went down in their odds. And so it's not just about two candidates. There are I think at least 8 active candidates right now. So keep that in mind. The math isn't a matter of a coin toss. Moving on to Colorado. Also on Super Tuesday, Sanders is forecasted, before the Nevada caucuses, he's forecasted to win an average of 33% of the vote in Colorado. He has a 76% chance of winning the most votes, much better than the second most likely winner, Bloomberg, who has an 8% chance, according to the simulation at that time. After the Nevada caucuses, Bloomberg is no longer in second place. Warren is in second place to get the most likely votes in Colorado. Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 34% of the votes in Colorado and has an 82% chance of winning the most votes, much better than the second most likely winner, Warren, who has a 6% chance. Now notice that's still pretty slim, but she's in second place there, so credit where credit's due. In that case, for Colorado, again, Bernie Sanders has increased his chances of getting the most votes by 6%. Now, because who's in second place changed, Bloomberg before the Nevada caucuses and Warren in second place after the Nevada caucuses. I haven't done the math there on how much either of those have gone up or down, or whether they stayed the same. But yeah, Bernie Sanders has increased his chances of having the most votes by 6% in this case, in that particular contest, as of the before and after the Nevada caucuses. Tennessee, March 3rd also. Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 26% of the vote. He has a 41% chance of winning the most votes, a bit better than Biden, who has a 29% chance. After the Nevada caucuses, Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 27% of the vote in Tennessee. He has a 46% chance of winning the most votes, a bit better than Biden, who has a 30% chance. So, in this case, after the Nevada caucuses, Bernie Sanders' chance went up by 5%, and Biden's chance went up by 1%. Alabama. Biden is showing as the first most likely to win there. And before the Nevada caucuses, Bloomberg was showing up in second place. So here we have Biden is forecasted to win an average of 27% of the vote in Alabama. He has a 48% chance of winning the most votes, a bit better than Bloomberg, who has a 25% chance. After the Nevada caucuses, that forecast looks a little different. Biden is forecasted to win an average of 29% of the vote in Alabama. He has a 53% chance of winning the most votes, a bit better than the second most likely winner, Sanders, who has a 24% chance. Now, notice that in this case, this simulation is still showing Bernie Sanders with a reasonably substantial chance of winning in Alabama, about 1 chance in 4, whereas Biden, it's showing as about 1 chance in 2 for winning in Alabama. But Biden is predicted to be second most likely to win in Alabama by this simulation, as of after the Nevada caucuses. And before the Nevada caucuses, Bloomberg was considered by the predictions to be, by the simulations predictions, to be second most likely to win the most votes in Alabama. So we shall see. By the time Super Tuesday comes along, since there seems to be a pattern of Bernie Sanders increasing his chances all over the place of getting the most votes, maybe he'll pass up Biden by that point in time and become the most likely to win in Alabama. And even if he's not the most likely to win the most votes, he might, based on the simulation, he might end up winning the most votes anyway. And that goes the other way around as well, that in cases where Bernie Sanders is predicted by the simulation to be the most likely, that doesn't mean that he will necessarily win the most votes. Someone else could. And again, if you support a different candidate, my suggestion would be, work hard for the candidate you support if you think they're worth working hard for. A lot of people think that, because Bernie Sanders has used the Democratic Socialist label and they understand socialism to be all about handouts, which it's not, but that's the way they think they understand what it is. That they think that, Bernie's being supported by a bunch of lazy people. Well, Bernie's being supported by a bunch of really hard-working, ambitious people. That's a fact. It's a demonstrable fact. Are there some lazy people supporting him too? Probably. I wouldn't be surprised. I haven't met any yet. I mean, not really. Actually, lazy people seem to, for the most part, be supporting other candidates. Strangely, lazy people that I know tend not to think very highly of lazy people. And and think that Bernie is supporting lazy people. So, and being supported by lazy people. Go figure. Any rate, we shall see what happens with Alabama. Should be interesting to watch, regardless. Moving on to Oklahoma. Also on Super Tuesday, Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 25% of the vote in Oklahoma. This forecast, again, was before the Nevada caucuses. He has a 45% chance of winning, according to the predictions at that time, the most votes, and a bit better than Bloomberg with a 29% chance. After the Nevada caucuses, Bloomberg's still showing up in second place there. Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 26% of the vote in Oklahoma. He has a 53% chance of winning the most votes, much better than the second most likely winner, Bloomberg, who has a 21% chance. So notice, still the same person in first and second place as far as most likely and second most likely to get the most votes. But there is a change in the odds. Bernie's chances went up by 8%. Bloomberg's chances went down by 8%. Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 24% of the vote in Arkansas. Again, this is before the Nevada caucuses. Predicted he has a 35% chance of winning the most votes. Essentially tied with the second most likely winner, Bloomberg, who has a 34% chance. Just a little bit lower. And after the Nevada caucuses, Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 25% of the vote in Arkansas. He has a 41% chance of winning the most votes. A bit better than the second most likely winner, Bloomberg, who has a 27% chance. Now, notice there, Bernie's chances of winning the most votes went up by 6%. Bloomberg's chances of winning the most votes went down by 7%. But he's still the second most likely, because there's a pretty big gap there between the two of them in that contest and the other candidates way down below them as far as who is most likely. Well, actually, Biden and Bloomberg are pretty close to tied. The other candidates are way down below those two. But Bernie is quite a bit above all of them. I mean, there's a pretty big gap there. 41% chance of Bernie winning the most votes, only a 27% chance of Bloomberg winning the most votes. But again, it could happen. So if you want it to happen, help make it happen. If you want it not to happen, help make something else happen. Help make what you do want to happen. Why anybody would... Well, I mean, okay. If you're a multi-billionaire who thinks that another multi-billionaire is going to do good things for you if he gets elected, as opposed to doing good things for himself at the expense of everyone else, which is how people become billionaires, then, maybe you'd be supporting Bloomberg. Why anybody else would support him, aside from being fooled into it, I don't know. And I think that's where he's getting most of his support from, is people being fooled into it. I've seen, for example, an ad with a song about small towns and a little bit of talk about small towns and not really saying anything about Bloomberg and what he stands for and what he's going to do. But, small towns, that's something that people can look up to. They like small towns. So, what's that have to do with, Bloomberg's policies? What are his policies? What's that have to do with the, stop and frisk, which Bloomberg still supports, but says, maybe he did push it a little too far. That maybe he shouldn't have had the police harass so many people based on nothing more than their demographic group. Yeah. I have very little to say about that other than, Any rate, so yeah, Sanders up by 6% in that contest, and Bloomberg down by 7% in that contest as a result of, or during the time of, the Nevada caucuses. Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 35% of the vote in Utah. This is, again, before the Nevada caucuses. He has a 82% chance of winning the most votes. I'm not saying this election is before the Nevada caucuses. I meant this prediction was made before the Nevada caucuses. He has an 82% chance of winning the most votes, much better than the second most likely winner, Bloomberg, with a 7% chance. That is in Utah. And we change who's in second place again after the Nevada caucuses, Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 37% of the vote in Utah. He has an 87% chance of winning the most votes, much better than second most likely winner Warren, who has a 5% chance. And again, Bernie Sanders increased his odds during that time, increased his odds of winning, according to this prediction, by 5% of winning the most votes in the state of Utah. Moving on to the state of Maine. Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 30% of the vote in Maine. He has a 61% chance, as of just before the Nevada caucuses. 61% chance of winning the most votes, much better than Bloomberg with a 14% chance. After the Nevada caucuses, again, Bernie went up, Bloomberg went down. Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 31% of the votes. He has a 66% chance of winning. That's 6% higher than it just was. And Bloomberg has a 10% chance of winning. 14% or 4% lower than it was. So, moving on to Vermont. Now this one, there ain't much room for Bernie Sanders to move up here. Down would be easier to do, you'd think, because it says he's got a 98% chance of winning the most votes. So Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 56% of the vote in Vermont. He has a 98% chance of winning the most votes, much better than the second most likely winner, Buttigieg, who has a 1% chance. Okay, so this is another case where who's in second place changes. So just looking at Bernie Sanders, again, 98% chance as predicted before the Nevada caucuses. As predicted after the Nevada caucuses, Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 59% of the vote in Vermont. He has a 99% chance of winning the most votes, much better than the second most likely winner, Warren, who has a 0.4% chance. So, again, Bernie has increased his chances, only by 1%. But keep in mind, that's from 98% up to 99%. Not a lot of times left that he can go up 1% in Vermont. That's his state. I mean, he's a very popular United States senator, and he's a U.S. senator for the state of Vermont. So, yeah, that's again, but it's not clinched. There is a chance. Notice this does say there is a 0.4% chance that Warren could win the most votes in Vermont. It's extremely unlikely, in other words, but not impossible. So if you're a huge Warren supporter and you really think that it's worth having Warren take Vermont just to keep Bernie Sanders from winning in the state where he's expected to win bigger than anywhere else, have at it, do your best. But keep in mind, it very much looks like everybody but Bernie Sanders is staying in the contest for one reason and one reason only at this point in time, and that is to keep Bernie Sanders from winning the nomination on that first round of votes. Now I say that with regard to the candidates that are hanging in there with, like in this case, 0.4% chance of winning in a particular election, who, maybe have, 10% or 20% chance, or a 5% chance, or a 1% chance of winning the most votes in the national convention, and, very, very slim chance of winning more than half the votes there. Bernie Sanders is the only candidate who really has a clear path to winning a majority of delegates at the national convention. And I hate to put this so bluntly, but there are people trying to stop him. Now, I do want to clarify that I do think there are some candidates who understand they have no real chance of winning, and at this point are probably staying in the race mainly for their message. They have something to tell the people. They want to talk to the people. And if they get lucky, I don't think they would turn down the chance to go ahead and win. If somehow things turned around and they started doing much better than they're expecting to. But I think some of the lesser known candidates are still out there trying to become better known, maybe working toward winning in some future election, or just trying to get a message out there to people, and I hate to put this way, but as well, that there may be some out there who are just doing it because people are donating money, and it allows them to travel around and meet people, and maybe some people in their campaign who are making their living off of the campaign running don't want them to stop, and have talked them into keeping going or whatever. So yeah, different reasons. I should not try to say that it's all the same reason, but what I am saying is, in a lot of ways, it does look that way. What's actually the case out there, I'm sure it varies from one candidate to another, at least somewhat. So yeah, Vermont, Bernie's raised his chances through the time of the Nevada caucuses, increased his chances of winning in Vermont by 1%, up to 99% chance of getting the most votes in Vermont. Moving on to the American Samoa contest. Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 30% of the vote in American Samoa. He has a 39% chance of winning the most votes, a bit better than Bloomberg, who has a 23% chance predicted before the Nevada caucuses. After the Nevada caucuses, different person in second place. Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 30% of the vote in American Samoa. He has a 39% chance of winning the most votes, a bit better than Biden, who has a 25% chance. So in this case, we changed who's in second place, and Bernie Sanders didn't have enough change there to show up in this simulation readout. His 39% chance of winning American Samoa before, as predicted before and as predicted after the Nevada caucuses. Michigan, Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 35% of the vote. Before the caucuses, he was predicted to have before the Nevada caucuses, he was predicted to have a 64% chance of winning the most votes. Much better than the second most likely winner, Biden, with a 15% chance. After the Nevada caucuses, no change for Biden there. Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 36% of the vote in Michigan. He has a 71% chance of winning the most votes, much better than second most likely winner, Biden, who has a 15% chance. So Bernie's chances went up by 7%, and Biden's chances did not noticeably change. Looking at the state of Washington, Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 38% of the vote in Washington. He has a 74% chance of winning the most votes, much better than Bloomberg, who has a 14% chance, as predicted before the Nevada caucuses. After the Nevada caucuses, Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 40% of the vote in Washington. He has an 81% chance of winning the most votes, much better than Bloomberg, who has an 8% chance. So Sanders increased his chances by 7%, and Bloomberg decreased his chances by 6%. So Sanders up 7, Bloomberg down 6, if you wanted to say it in a shorter way. Missouri, March 10th. Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 26% of the vote in Missouri. In 80% of simulations, he wins between 9% and 45% of the vote. He has a 38% chance of winning the most votes, slightly better than Bloomberg, who has a 28% chance, as predicted before the Nevada caucuses. In the screenshot I've got from after the Nevada caucuses, the prediction says Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 28% of the vote in Missouri. He has a 43% chance of winning the most votes, a bit better than Biden, who has a 29% chance. So in Missouri, as of the Nevada caucuses, Bernie's chances went up by 5%, and who's in second place changed. Continuing on with Mississippi. And this is another one where Biden is in first place according to this simulation, as predicted before the Nevada caucuses. Biden is forecasted to win an average of 27% of the vote in Mississippi. He has a 38% chance of winning the most votes, slightly better than Bernie Sanders, who has a 34% chance. After the Nevada caucuses, Biden's still in first place, forecasted to win an average of 29% of the vote in Mississippi. Has a 42% chance of winning the most votes there. Slightly better than Sanders, who has a 36% chance. Now, in this case, Joe Biden's chances went up a little more than Bernie Sanders' chances did. Biden increased his chances of winning the most votes in Mississippi by 4% over the time of the Nevada caucuses, and Bernie Sanders increased his chances of winning the most votes in Mississippi by 2%. So any Sanders supporters out there in Mississippi, you might want to get on that. Talk to people about Bernie Sanders. Don't tell them how bad Joe Biden is or anything like that. Just talk to them about, what you like about Bernie Sanders, and that's your best bet. Because if you just talk people into not voting for the candidate that they think is the best, you might talk them into not voting at all, and that just makes the election a little less democratic. So encourage them to vote for whoever they think is best, but let them know why you think your candidate is the one they should think is best. Give them reasons to agree with you, and if they disagree with your reasons, it'll be what it'll be. We don't have to all agree with each other. Moving on to Idaho. Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 36% of the vote in Idaho. And I believe this was another one where the second place changed over the Nevada caucuses. So before the Nevada caucuses, Sanders is forecasted to win 36% of the vote in Idaho. He has a 70% chance of winning the most votes there. And that's slightly... much better. Sorry. Looking for the wording and and the numbers. Much better than the second most likely winner, Bloomberg, who has a 13% chance. So compare those numbers. Well, yeah. Like I said, I think the second place was changed. Yeah, went to Biden. Looking at Bernie Sanders, no, with 77% chance. So he's gone up by 7% there. Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 39% of the vote in Idaho. has a 77% chance of winning the most votes, much better than Biden, who has an 8% chance. So there again, changed who's in second place, and Bernie increased his chances over the course of the Nevada caucuses, increased his chances of winning in Idaho, the most votes, by 9% or 7%. North Dakota, Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 32% of the votes in North Dakota. He has a 60% chance, as predicted before the Nevada caucuses, of winning the most votes in North Dakota. Much better than Bloomberg, who has a 13% chance. Again, as predicted before the Nevada caucuses. After the Nevada caucuses, we changed who's in second place in that prediction. Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 35% of the vote in North Dakota. He has a 69% chance of winning the most votes, much better than the second most likely winner, Biden, who has an 8% chance. So Bernie Sanders increased his chances over the course of the Nevada caucuses, increased his chances of winning the most votes in North Dakota by 9%. Also on March 10th, who will win the Democrats abroad primary? Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 33% of that vote. He has a 3 in 5 or 59% chance of winning the most votes, much better than Bloomberg, who has a 15% chance. Now, after the Nevada caucuses, Bloomberg remains in second place in that prediction. Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 35% of the vote for the Democrats abroad, and has a 67% chance of winning the most votes. Much better than Bloomberg, who has a 10% chance. So Bernie's chances went up by 8%. Bloomberg's chances over the course of that time went down by 5% of winning the most votes for Democrats abroad. Again, before the Nevada caucuses, here's a prediction that Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 33% of the vote in the Northern Marianas. He has a 44% chance of winning the most votes in that election, in that contest. A bit better than Bloomberg, who has a 23% chance. Changing who's in second place after the Nevada caucuses in this prediction, Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 34% of the vote in Northern Marianas. He has a 47% chance of winning the most votes, a bit better than Biden, who has a 20% chance. So there, Bernie Sanders increased his chances over the course of the Nevada caucuses, increased his chances by about 3% of winning the most votes in the Northern Marianas caucuses. For the contest on Tuesday, March 17th in Florida, Bloomberg is forecasted to win an average of 28% of the vote. And this prediction considers him at this point in time, at the before the Nevada caucuses, to be the most likely to win the most votes. It says Bloomberg has a 36% chance in that prediction of winning the most votes, essentially tied with the second most likely winner, Sanders, who has a 34% chance. So there is a 2% difference, and I'm not sure what they consider their margin of error. At this point, I don't think they really would, quite know what their margin of error is. And I mean, when you think about it, the whole thing I'm showing here is these numbers change. So it's not so much a matter of even what the margin of error is, but even if they were 100% accurate, what the odds were at the time that they made the prediction, those odds can and do change. And so when they make a later prediction, that new prediction might be just as accurate, more accurate, or less accurate than the prediction before. But even if both predictions are 100% accurate for what the odds are, that doesn't mean they're going to be the same, because the odds can change. So that's important to keep in mind. Now, if we look at the results for Florida, or the prediction for Florida that was made after the one I got a screenshot of, that was made after the Nevada caucuses, Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 29% of the vote in Florida. He has a 39% chance of winning the most votes, slightly better than the most likely winner, Bloomberg, who has a 29% chance. So now we've got a difference of 10%, not 2%. So it's no longer calling them essentially tied, and Sanders is now, in that prediction, more likely than Bloomberg, where in the earlier prediction it predicted him to be less likely than Bloomberg to win the most votes in Florida. By the numbers, Bernie went up by 5 and Bloomberg went down by 7. So Bloomberg decreased his chances of winning during the Nevada caucuses. Bloomberg decreased his chances of winning in Florida by 7%. Sanders increased his chances of winning in Florida by 5%, winning the most votes there. In Illinois, or Illinois, or Illinois, different people pronounce it different ways. However, Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 35% of the vote in Illinois. He has a 61% chance of winning the most votes, much better than Biden, who has a 17% chance, as predicted before the Nevada caucuses. After the Nevada caucuses, Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 37% of the vote in Illinois. He has a 68% chance of winning the most votes, much better than Biden, who has a 17% chance. So Biden's odds didn't noticeably change there. They stayed at 17%. Bernie Sanders increased his odds of winning the most votes in Illinois by 7% over that time. Ohio, Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 35% of the votes. He has a 60% chance of winning the most votes, much better than Bloomberg, who has a 17% chance. Again, this was one where who's in second place changed, and you might notice a lot of that. Bloomberg was in second place, now Biden is in second place. You know, before the Nevada caucuses, Bloomberg was predicted as second most likely to win the most votes. After the Nevada caucuses, Biden is predicted as second most likely to win the most votes in the same contest. Bernie Sanders is predicted as most likely in most of these contests. So the most likely spot is generally taken by Sanders already, and so you know, there's where you have the second place swapping from Bloomberg, who did very poorly in Nevada, to Biden, who did better than Bloomberg. And yeah, what more can I say about that? So yeah, at any rate, like I said, Bernie's chances increased by 7% there. Before the Nevada caucuses, Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 35% of the vote in Arizona. He has a 63% chance of winning the most votes, much better than Bloomberg with a 16% chance. Again, Bloomberg in second place before the Nevada caucuses. After the Nevada caucuses, Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 37% of the vote in Arizona. He has a 71% chance of winning the most votes, much better than Biden, who has a 13% chance. So again, Bernie's chances went up by 8% in this case. March 24th, the contest in Georgia. Again, before the Nevada caucuses, Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 32% of the vote in Georgia. He has a 44% chance of winning the most votes, and that is considered by this website to be a bit better than Biden, who has a 29% chance. Looking at the prediction that they gave after the Nevada caucuses, again, I say the prediction, I mean the one that I actually took a screenshot of. It took me a few tries because I'd try to get screenshots of all of these, and it would change in the middle of me doing the screenshots, and then I had to start over. So this isn't the only prediction they've made since that time. This thing gets updated. This is the one I managed to get screenshots of all the way through before it updated again. So that's what I'm working with. Okay, so in this case, after the Nevada caucuses, Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 34% of the vote in Georgia. He has a 49% chance of winning the most votes, a bit better than Biden, who has a 31% chance. So again, both candidates, the first and second place in this case, increased their chances. Biden by 2% and Bernie Sanders by 5%. 5% increase. Puerto Rico, March 29th. Sanders is forecast, again, before the Nevada caucuses, forecasted to win an average of 35% of the vote in Puerto Rico. He has a 49% chance of winning the most votes, a bit better than Bloomberg, who at that time was predicted to have a 23% chance. After the Nevada caucuses, that prediction has changed to Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 37% of the vote in Puerto Rico. He has a 53% chance of winning the most votes, a bit better than second most likely winner Biden, who has a 24% chance of winning the most votes in Puerto Rico, according to that prediction. And again, I don't know how much Bloomberg or Biden went up or down in those particular cases. I know it switched who was in second place, but looking at the numbers here, Bernie Sanders increased his chances of winning in Puerto Rico by 4%. April 4th, Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 31% of the vote in Louisiana. Again, this is a prediction made before the Nevada caucuses. He has a 40% chance of winning the most votes, a bit better than Biden, who has a 29% chance. Keeping the second place person the same here. After the Nevada caucuses, Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 33% of the vote in Louisiana. He has a 44% chance of winning the most votes, a bit better than Biden, who has a 31% chance. So again, both increased their chances of being the one to come out with the most votes in Louisiana. Bernie's chances went up by 4% and Biden's chances went up by 2%. So, Bernie's ahead and he's leaving him slightly farther behind. So even though Biden's chances went up, he's not catching up to Bernie, because Bernie's chances increased by more than Joe's chances did. Moving on to the state of Hawaii. Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 43% of the vote in Hawaii. He has a 59% chance of winning the most votes, much better than second most likely winner Bloomberg, who has an 18% chance, according to the prediction before the Nevada caucuses. After the Nevada caucuses, Bloomberg's not in second place anymore there. Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 46% of the vote in Hawaii. He has a 65% chance of winning the most votes, much better than Biden, who has a 13% chance. So Bernie Sanders increased his chances of winning Hawaii by 6% over that time period. There's a lot more time left before Hawaii gets here. So, his chances can go up or down more by then, and other candidates' chances can go up or down more by then. And it does very much look like Bernie is going to end up still being the most likely. But if for example, if you really want Tulsi Gabbard to win in her home state of Hawaii, work hard at it. I think Tulsi is a good candidate. I hope Bernie picks her for a vice presidential running mate. I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't really personally think she's quite ready to be president, but I do think she could make a good one. And serving as Bernie's vice president would be a good preparation for that. But again, you make up your own mind who you vote for. Bernie said it back in 2016. If anybody tells you who to vote for, you shouldn't listen to them. Being told who to vote for is not the same as being told good reasons to vote for someone. Because, someone told me to vote for this person isn't a good reason to vote for a person. It's just not. But please do try to pick a candidate that you can really get behind and strongly support, and vote for that candidate whether you think they can make it or not, because that's really what democracy is all about. Getting what we actually want represented to the best of our ability, and collectively basically coming to a compromise that hopefully we can all live with. Bernie increased his chances by 6% over the course of the Nevada caucuses of winning the most votes in Hawaii. Again, predicted before the Nevada caucuses, for the contest on Saturday, April 4th, in Alaska, Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 46% of the vote. He has a 64% chance of winning the most votes, much better than Bloomberg, who at that time was predicted to have a 16% chance. After the Nevada caucuses, the simulation cranked this out. Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 51% of the vote in Alaska. He has a 72% chance of winning the most votes, much better than second most likely winner Biden, who has a 12% chance. So, in Alaska, over the course of the Nevada caucuses, Bernie Sanders increased his chances of winning the most votes in that Alaska primary by 8%. Moving on to Wyoming, Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 39% of the vote in Wyoming. Again, this forecast was made before the Nevada caucuses, predicting he has a 48% chance of winning the most votes there, a bit better than Bloomberg, who was predicted to have an 18% chance. And once again, Bloomberg in second place before the Nevada caucuses, and Biden in second place after the Nevada caucuses. Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 42% of the vote in Wyoming. He has a 53% chance of winning the most votes, much better than Biden, who has a 15% chance. So again, over the course of the Nevada caucuses, Bernie's odds of winning the most votes in Wyoming went up by 5%. Wisconsin, we see something quite similar. April 7th, contest in Wisconsin. Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 38% of the vote in Wisconsin. He has a 59% chance of winning the most votes, much better than the second most likely winner, Bloomberg, as predicted before the Nevada caucuses, with an 18% chance. After the Nevada caucuses, here's the prediction by 538.com. Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 41% of the vote in Wisconsin. He has a 66% chance of winning the most votes, much better than Biden, who has a 15% chance. So Bernie Sanders increased his chances over the course of the Nevada caucuses by 7% of winning the most votes in Wisconsin. April 28th. Sanders is forecasted, again, this is a forecast made before the Nevada caucuses, forecasted to win an average of 35% of the vote in New York. Has a 45% chance of winning the most votes, a bit better than Bloomberg, with a 34% chance. And after the Nevada caucuses, Bloomberg managed to hold on to second place. Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 37% of the vote in New York. Bloomberg was mayor there, so yeah, it makes sense he'd hold on to second place. You know, if the people really wanted him, he should have really been, like, killing it there. I'm just saying. I mean, look how Bernie's doing in Vermont, where people know him best. That should tell you everything you need to know about Bernie Sanders right there. If you don't have enough time to really research all the candidates, the people who know Bernie best are overwhelmingly supporting him. Just saying. So yeah, Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 37% of the vote in New York. He has a 52% chance of winning the most votes, a bit better than Bloomberg, who has a 26% chance. So there again, Bernie's odds went up by 7% over that course of time, and Bloomberg's odds of winning the most votes in New York went down by 8% over that same course of time. Gotta wonder how many of those votes went from Bloomberg over to Sanders. You know, from people who just, you know, figured out that Bernie's a better choice. Don't know though. And again, it's a very complex simulation, so exactly how it comes to these predictions, it's not something that I have all of the details on. Although if you go to their website, you can look at which polls they used and information about the process that they use, and, you know, stuff like that. So there's quite a bit that can be learned about it, and I have looked at a lot of that stuff. But again, this is going to be a really long video regardless. It's already an hour and a half, and I'm not done yet. So yeah, Sanders up by 7%, Bloomberg down by 8% in New York over the course of the Nevada caucuses. Moving on. April 28th, Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 35% of the vote in Pennsylvania. Again, prediction made before the Nevada caucuses. He has a 49% chance of winning the most votes, a bit better than Biden, who has a 23% chance. After the Nevada caucuses, new prediction, Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 37% of the vote in Pennsylvania. He has a 55% chance of winning the most votes, much better than Biden, who has a 23% chance. So there again, Sanders up by 6%, and Biden not noticeably changed in that particular contest. Maryland. Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 33% of the vote in Maryland. He has a 41% chance as of the prediction made before the Nevada caucuses, just before the Nevada caucuses. 41% chance of winning the most votes, a bit better than Biden, who has a 27% chance in that prediction. Looking at the prediction after the Nevada caucuses, who will win the Maryland primary? Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 35% of the vote in Maryland. He has a 46% chance of winning the most votes, a bit better than Biden, who has a 29% chance. So Sanders up by 5, Biden down by 2. April 28th, again, predicted before the Nevada caucuses, Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 37% of the vote in Connecticut. He has a 53% chance of winning the most votes. Much better than Bloomberg, with a 21% chance in that prediction. After the Nevada caucuses, Bloomberg is no longer in second place. Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 39% of the votes in Connecticut. He has a 60% chance of winning the most votes, much better than Biden, who has a 19% chance. So there again, Bernie's chances went up over that time period by 6%. See a bit of a pattern here. Rhode Island, April 28th. Predicted before the Nevada caucuses. 538.com predicted Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 41% of the vote in Rhode Island. He has a 61% chance of winning the most votes, much better than Bloomberg, who has a 17% chance. After the Nevada caucuses, who will win the Rhode Island primary? Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 44% of the vote in Rhode Island. He has a 69% chance of winning the most votes, much better than second most likely winner Biden, who has a 14% chance. So Bernie Sanders, again, over the time period of the Nevada caucuses, increased his odds of winning the most votes in Rhode Island by about 8%. Delaware, one of the few states that I have seen Bernie predicted in second place at least once by this simulation. By the way, the simulation isn't being run by a Bernie supporter. As I understand it, it's, well, the credits are on the website for the people involved. You can look them up yourself. But yeah, if you think that, that it's showing Bernie winning because it's a Bernie supporter that's making the thing, yeah, I don't think so. But again, do your own research, judge for yourself. So, Tuesday, April 28th. Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 33% of the vote in Delaware. He has a 41% chance of winning the most votes, slightly better than Biden, who has a 37% chance. And Biden stays in second place for the prediction after the Nevada caucuses. Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 36% of the vote in Delaware. He has a 44% chance of winning the most votes, slightly better than Biden, who has a 41% chance. So again, both increased their chances, and this is again one of those rare cases where Bernie didn't get the most increase in odds. Bernie Sanders went up by 3%, and Biden went up by 4%. So we'll see where that ends up. But this stuff is in flux. That's my point. We, the people, can make a difference. Bernie has been trying to tell the people that in various ways, and some people are getting it. And they're working really, really hard to make it happen. And it's working. Other people still don't quite get it yet. So talk to those people. Help them understand. No. That was... what was the date on that one? That was April 28th. Sorry, I'm not real good with dates. Moving on to May 2nd. And I think what happened here, May 2nd, is that that after the Nevada caucuses, I think the simulation predicted that the most likely thing to happen with Bloomberg is that he's going to drop out before that date, before May 2nd happens. And so before the Nevada caucuses, my point is, I think it was calculating, before the Nevada caucuses, it was calculating Bloomberg being most likely to still be in the race by May 2nd, because it thought he would be doing well enough to want to stay in the race by then. And after the Nevada caucuses, I think it switched to, like, he's not doing that well, and he'll probably drop out before May 2nd comes along. I'll let you judge for yourself, but just a little heads up on that. Look for a pattern over the next, like, 9, including this one, contests. So I think it's about 9 of them. Well, the next dozen or so, if you I mean, basically everything from there to the end, with the possible exception of Washington D.C., depending on how you look at it, where it's probably basically the same thing going on there, but not as obvious because, well, you'll see. At any rate, talking too much about stuff that you probably figure out for yourself. So, prediction before the Nevada caucuses. Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 42% of the vote in Kansas. 53%. He has a 53% chance of winning the most votes. Much better than Bloomberg with a 22% chance. So that's the before snapshot. Let's look at the after snapshot, after the Nevada caucuses. Who will win the Kansas primary? Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 46% of the vote in Kansas. He has a 61% chance of winning the most votes, much better than Biden, who has a 17% chance. So Sanders up by 8%. Bloomberg no longer expected to be second most likely to win the most votes. Guam. May 2nd. Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 37% of the vote in Guam. He has a 45% chance of winning the most votes, as predicted before the Nevada caucuses. A bit better than Bloomberg, who was predicted to have a 25% chance. After the Nevada caucuses, who will win the Guam caucuses? Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 40% of the vote in Guam. He has a 49% chance of winning the most votes, a bit better than Biden, who has a 22% chance. So, Sanders up 4% in Guam. Moving on to Indiana. May 5th, Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 34% of the vote in Indiana. Again, this is the before snapshot. He has a 48% chance of winning the most votes. A bit better than Bloomberg with a 19% chance. And after the Nevada caucuses, who will win the Indiana primary? Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 37% of the vote in Indiana. He has a 54% chance of winning the most votes, much better than Biden with a 17% chance. So in Indiana, Sanders up by 6%. Nebraska, May 12th. Sanders is forecasted to win 36% of the vote. Has a 51% chance of winning the most votes. And that's seen as a bit better than Bloomberg, who was predicted before the Nevada caucuses of having a 22% chance of getting the most votes in that Nebraska contest. After, here's our after shot. Who will win the Nebraska primary? Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 40% of the vote in Nebraska. He has a 60% chance of winning the most votes, much better than Biden with a 17% chance. This is a pattern here. Nebraska, Sanders up by 9%. West Virginia, Sanders is forecasted to win 37% of the vote. Has a 49% chance of winning. And again, in the before snapshot, Bloomberg has a 25% chance. After the Nevada primaries, Bernie Sanders has a 40% chance of winning the vote in West Virginia. Sorry, I didn't say that right. Didn't read that right. The aftershot, Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 40% of the vote in West Virginia. Has a 57% chance of winning the most votes. Much better than Biden, who has a 19% chance in that prediction. So, again, Sanders up by 8%. And you see a pattern here? Because I do. Oregon. Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 39% in the before shot. He has a 54% chance of winning the most votes, much better than Bloomberg with a 21% chance. After the Nevada caucuses, who will win the Oregon primary? Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 43% of the vote in Oregon. He has a 63% chance of winning the most votes, much better than Biden with a 16% chance. Again, Sanders up by 9% in his odds of winning the most votes in Oregon. May 19th, Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 36% in Kentucky. That is, again, the before shot. The prediction before the Nevada caucuses says he has a 49% chance of winning the most votes in Kentucky, a bit better than Bloomberg with a 24% chance. After, who will win the Kentucky primaries? Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 40% of the vote in Kentucky. He has a 56% chance of winning the most votes, much better than Biden with a 20% chance. And there, Sanders up by 7%. June 2nd, Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 38% of the vote in New Jersey. Again, this is a prediction before the Nevada primaries, or caucuses rather, before the Nevada caucuses actually happened. This prediction said Bernie has a 49% chance of winning the most votes in New Jersey, a bit better than Bloomberg with a 25% chance. After the Nevada caucuses, Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 41% of the vote in New Jersey. He has a 57% chance of winning the most votes, much better than Biden with a 20% chance. Again, Sanders up by 8%. New Mexico, June 2nd. Again, in the before prediction, Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 42% of the vote in New Mexico, He has a 57% chance of winning the most votes. Much better than Bloomberg with an 18% chance. After the Nevada caucuses, Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 46% of the vote in New Mexico. He has a 64% chance of winning the most votes, much better than Biden with a 19% chance. So notice Bloomberg isn't showing up as second most likely in any of these. And Biden is. So he's like taking Bloomberg's place at that stage in the game. Again, according to the prediction so far. This may change. In what ways? We shall see. But remember, if you want it to change a certain way, have something to do with it. Do something about it. You can. Yes, we can. Sí, podemos. That's a bit of a pet peeve of mine, by the way. I have nothing against people saying sí se puede, which is Spanish for basically yes, it is possible. Yes, it can itself. It doesn't really translate real well into English, but it is not yes, we can. And it's used as a translation or a substitute for yes, we can. Sí podemos is yes, we can. Sí se puede is basically saying yes, it can happen. Yes, it's possible. Yes, it is able itself. Sí podemos. Yes, we are able. So, yeah. Washington, D.C. Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 46% of the vote. I'm still reading the New Mexico one here. Sanders up by 7% in New Mexico. Moving on to Washington, D.C. District of Columbia. Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 34% of the vote in the District of Columbia. Again, this is the before shot. Predicted to have a 38% chance of winning the most votes in D.C. Slightly better than Biden with a 28% chance. Notice, unlike a bunch of them we just went through, this one isn't switching from Bloomberg in being the second most likely to Biden being the second most likely, because Bloomberg isn't the second most likely in the prediction before the Nevada caucuses either. It says Biden has a 28% chance. Bernie Sanders has a 38% chance of winning the most votes, as predicted before the Nevada caucuses. After the Nevada caucuses, same person in first place, same person in second place. Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 36% of the vote in the District of Columbia. He has a 44% chance of winning the most votes, a bit better than Biden, who has a 30% chance. So Biden's odds of winning the most votes went up by 2% over that course of time, and Bernie Sanders increased his chances of winning the most votes in Washington, D.C. Over the course of that same time by 6%. So again, he's widening the gap between himself and Biden. Or I should say, since Bernie says, not me, us, which I don't think he knows it, but I gave him that slogan. I'm glad he's using it. He's increasing the gap. We're increasing the gap, because really it is us doing it, and Bernie acknowledges that and has acknowledged that from the start. He has been saying all along that it's not about him, it's about us, and that was actually from before the not me, us thing, which I really didn't like the a future you can believe in, because and I told his campaign people that nothing wrong with having a future to believe in. I just didn't think that was a really good slogan, because I think we need a future. I think we need a better future we can build, not just one to believe in. That's kind of like the si se puede, which is basically like, hey, just trust that things can get better. As opposed to, you know, or have faith that things can get better. As opposed to, let's make things get better. Because isn't it better to make things get better? So, yes, we can. And not me, not just you, not just Bernie, us, together, collectively. That's what democracy is all about. It's, you know, that's why it should be a lot more fair and equal than it is. And I'm not saying it should be 100% equal. We don't all even want the same things. We wouldn't want to all have the same things or the same amounts of things. You know, that's not what it's about. But fairness, justice, reasonable balance. So yeah. So forecasted before the Nevada caucuses, a win of 36% of the vote in D.C. Again, 44% chance of winning the most votes, and Biden with a 30% chance. When we move on to that's after. Yeah, I'll go back and read again because I interrupted myself. This is back to the previous frame. Before the primary caucuses, Sanders is forecasted to win 34% of the vote in D.C., has a 38% chance of winning the most votes, compared to Biden with a 28% chance. There's a 10-point difference there. And then after the Nevada caucuses, Sanders is forecasted to win 36% of the vote in D.C., has a 44% chance of winning the most votes, compared to Biden with a 30% chance. So now there's a 14-point difference. Again, Biden did increase his chances by 2%, but Bernie Sanders increased his chances by 6%. So widening that gap. Moving on to Montana. In the before shot, June 2nd, Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 36% of the vote in Montana. He has a 48% chance of winning the most votes. A bit better than Bloomberg in second place, with a 25% chance. After the Nevada caucuses, Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 40% of the vote in Montana. He has a 56% chance of winning the most votes, much better than Biden with a 17% chance. So in Montana, Bernie increased his odds by 8% over the course of the Nevada caucuses, winning the most votes there, winning the most votes in Montana. South Dakota, June 2nd contest. Again, Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 36% of the vote in South Dakota. He has a 49% chance, as predicted before the Nevada caucuses, of winning the most votes there, compared to Bloomberg with a 24% chance. After the Nevada caucuses, the prediction says Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 40% of the vote in South Dakota. He has a 58% chance of winning the most votes, much better than second most likely winner Biden with an 18% chance. So again, Sanders up by 9% in that contest. And the Virgin Islands, June 6th, the last contest for the Democratic primaries and caucuses. Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 34% of the vote in the Virgin Islands. He has a 39% chance of winning the most votes, a bit better than Bloomberg with a 26% chance. After the Nevada caucuses, Sanders is forecasted to win an average of 36% in the Virgin Islands. He has a 41% chance of winning the most votes, a bit better than Biden with a 28% chance. Again, Sanders up by 2%. Now, moving on to finished contests. The Nevada forecast and results, Bernie Sanders, and there's no before and after. This is, again, this was the last forecast they had, so this is the before and after in one here. Sanders was forecasted to win an average of 39% of the vote in Nevada. He had an 85% chance of winning the most votes, much better than Buttigieg, who had a 6% chance. So Buttigieg's chances went down by 6% because he went down to 0% since it's over. He didn't win. And Bernie Sanders' chance went up to 100%, so increased by 15% from the 85% it was at. New Hampshire forecast and results. Sanders was forecasted to win 28% of the vote in New Hampshire. He had a 67% chance of winning the most votes, much better than Buttigieg, who had a 31% chance. And again, Bernie did win the most votes, so his chances went up to 100%. Buttigieg's went down to 0% because he did not win the most votes. Sanders won 20% of the vote in New Hampshire. And in the Iowa forecast and results, again, Sanders was forecasted to win 28% of the results in Iowa, 28% of the vote in Iowa. He had a 41% chance of winning the most votes, slightly better than Biden, who had a 32% chance of winning the most votes. And Bernie did win the most votes in Iowa with 27% of the Iowa votes. And I'm gonna end this video with that. I did, if anybody wants to, if you can see this data on the screen, I did a little math there for the percentages for anybody who wants to look at what's wrong with the math in Iowa. And this is what I got it from. So, thanks.